and I call the member for Dawson.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I rise today to speak on the Export Control Amendment Ending Live Sheep Export by Sea Bill 2024, and I certainly will not be supporting this bill. And we've heard the last two speakers, and their whole speeches have been dripping in sanctimony and ideology, but I'm here to offer the real story and the realism. Now, I've been very fortunate, Deputy Speaker, that I'm actually on two committees within here in Parliament. So I'm on the Joint Agricultural Committee and I'm also on the Coalition Ag Committee. So I've had the opportunity to go across and go to Western Australia and have a look and talk to the sheep farmers and have a good look around, so I don't get my information off the back of a cornflakes packet like some of the people do. Actually, I'm a farmer by trade and I get to be able to see and feel the real story. So during my last visit to WA, I toured the MV Dareen, which is a live sheep ship. And I toured that with Export Manager Paul Keenan from Livestock Shipping Services. Now, it was really, really interesting to actually go through that ship and actually do it from start to finish. Now, he took my tour at late notice because no one actually knew that I was going to go there, so nothing was set up. It was exactly as it is. So I went aboard the ship, and the bottom couple of layers actually have cattle on the bottom. Now, we've heard from the honourable member from Clark, who said he's happy to actually get the live cattle industry killed off as well, and not just the sheep. And I just wonder, those opposite, is that the cunning plan here as well? Is it sheep first, and then is the live cattle industry going to be killed off as well? I know in my electorate of Dawson how they've killed off the gill nets, so there's about 90 fishermen, not to mention the auxiliary businesses, have lost all their business as well. So you can just see the modus operandi here, how it just seems to be one primary industry after another that has been facing the axe. But let's go back to the ship. So when you go on the ship, like I said, on the bottom couple of rows, there's cattle. And then when you go into the live sheep decks, so you have the live sheep pens on the side, nice open walkways as you go through, sheep in the middle, walkways again, and then sheep on the side. And all the sheep are divided up. So in each pen, there's a 30% space. So there's plenty of room for all the sheep to move around within those pens. There's also a hospital pen on there, so in case any of the sheep get crook or they're not feeling so well, they're going to be taken from that pen and put in the hospital pen and nursed back to health. And of course the ventilation. So there's ventilation, so on the top decks you can't feel it quite as much because it's open air, so you haven't got a vacuum. But when you go down within the ship, you can actually feel the air ventilation going through. This is the lived experience. This is actually what happens and is the real story. Food and water is delivered to the sheep, and every single pen has feeders come across it and then water going through it, and it's constantly monitored. All the sheep are constantly monitored. People are walking around through them, they have vets, and even the captain, who I actually met on the ship, takes a personal interest in that because he knows, as well as all the crew knows, to have successful outcomes and to have successful voyages, you have to have happy and healthy sheep. Because if they don't, then they don't have a job. So pure self-interest creates them to do the best possible job that they can. Now, Paul's business model, he's bought these sheep, he's got a feed lot, so he fattened the sheep up a little bit more, so he made sure that they were nice and strong and ready to be gone across the voyage. Then he loads them onto the ship. Then when they come off the ship, they go into another feed lot and then get processed, then get sold for processing. So let's just have a look at that. If you've got a business and your business model is to have happy and healthy sheep, wouldn't you be doing every single thing possible to make sure that those sheep are healthy and looked after? I certainly would, because that's how you make money in the real world. And the people talk about temperature. Well, now they only send the sheep in the cooler time of the year. They've learnt the best possible time to send sheep, and that's what they do. That is real animal welfare. But don't just take my word from it. Dr. Holly Luderman, very, very well-renowned vet, she provided us evidence when I was on the Joint Ag Committee. The mortality rate of the sheep is now 99.85%. The success rate, 99.85% success rate. And so they're actually safer and they're better off when they're on the sheep than what they are when they're in the paddock. They actually have problems when they're in the paddock as well. That's what, yeah, I suppose like cars, you know, when they're driving down the road, every now and again they have an accident. Some things do actually go wrong. But the live sheep trade, and when they're on the ship, they're looked after exceptionally well. Now, when we're over there, I talked to the farmers. And a lot of these farmers have been on the land 3, 4, 5, 1 up to 6 generations. They are really, really concerned about their livelihood, really, really concerned about their welfare. And I heard from some of the members of the Greens and the crossbench, and they were talking about transition. Well, some of the farmers said to me, Andrew, we can't transition. Our land is not suitable for this. Our land is suitable for sheep. We can't grow crops. The soil type is not in the right condition what it needs to be. So these farmers are actually hurting. I know we're talking a lot about the sheep and their welfare, but let's digress a little bit. Let's talk about farmers' welfare. Do we actually are we concerned about how the farmers are and how their mental health is, and what sort of how they've got to go home and explain to their kids that, hey, we're going to have to walk off the land here because it doesn't work? Let's think about their mental health. There was 1,300 people in a rally in Perth, and there was thousands attended in Muresk. Thousands of people telling their story, not just these stories that, again, I think been made up on the back of cornflakes packets. These are real people and real people livelihoods. And I'd just like to read an open letter from a sheep farmer. We have been sheep farming for 46 years and haven't sent a sheep on a boat for over 25 years. But I would like to know that that is still an option. They used to say that Australia rode on the sheep's back. This is true, but now many things keep us prosperous. Wool and sheep are seen as valuable commodities, so much so that in the 1980s and 90s, a government-backed reserve price schemes was introduced. This created an oversupply, and as a result, over 4 million bales of wool were stockpiled because alternatives like cotton and synthetics were more affordable. A lesson learnt that market dictates the price. The solution to this was another government-backed scheme called the Flock Reduction Scheme, which involved sheep farmers rounding up their youngest breeding ewes, digging a hole and euthanising them to receive $6 a head in compensation. I never participated, but many did. Another bad policy. Today's debate is different. From the dark days of the tragic Awassi, our sheep industry is self-imposed its own restrictions to achieve a goal that the world is proud of in animal welfare standards, in government intervention, without government intervention. Why step in and ban an industry that is progressive and expanding ethically? Mr Watt is quoted as saying that 70% of Australians are against live export. I do recall a referendum, but around that number, but that was certainly not in regards to live export. I ask that you people in government think seriously about opposing this legislation based on the facts I've given. And that's signed Vanessa O'Brien from Pingelly, WA. Accurate testament that a lady handed me that letter. So we heard from the crossbench again that the trade is decreasing. Well, it has over a long period of time, but the last couple of years it's actually been increasing. So that's what happens when you're in market forces. Some things go down and up, but now we're in an upward trend. And if it is so bad and then we're going to lose it anyway, why not let the market forces let it take its course? Let them sort it out. We also heard, Deputy Speaker, we also heard from local government, some heartfelt pleas from local government, some mayors and some councillors, and they said, this is going to decimate our shires, decimate our region. All the businesses are going to be affected, the farmers, it's going to affect schools, the schools will be closing, and it's going to cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So for the transition to be saying of one, I think it's 107 million or something, they said that is a pittance. That will not even touch the sides. Plus there's actually no modelling on how that 107 is going to work, but that's a little bit of a side note. So, international reputation, another one. What does this say to our people over in the Middle East that we are currently serving with the live export? We say, what, you're not good enough to eat our sheep now? They will then have to go and buy that sheep from somewhere else, someone who doesn't have the same standard as us. So why wouldn't you, in the whole animal welfare debate, is a sheep not a sheep, not a sheep across the whole world? Right? Why, if you're looking for animal welfare, why not support the Australian industry that actually has the best standard in the world? Would it be just because of cheap political point scoring? Would it be for those opposite? Like I can see in question time, I think the Labor Greens coalition is in a little bit of trouble. There's a little bit of argy-bargy backwards and forwards. Is that what it actually is? I'm not exactly sure, but what I think it should be is we need to make the decisions on facts, and we need to make sure that we are supporting our farmers. There are different types of sheep as well. So sheep in different, so you have lamb, and then as they grow a bit older, they go into hogget, a two-teeth sheep, and then you have mutton. So people talk about, oh, we'll just process these sheep locally. The fact of it is, as the farmers have told me, these sheep that they are actually sending live export aren't suitable to be processed here locally. They have no commercial value. So again, this is a trade that underpins and provides some certainty for not just the meat industry, but for the wool industry, because there's sheep that they can shear 5 or 6 times and then put them on a boat and actually make some money out of them. The good news is a coalition government will reinstate the live sheep export industry. So we will stand shoulder to shoulder with our farmers, support our farmers, and make sure we're there for them. There are so many businesses involved, the truck drivers and shearers. Now let's talk about the shearers. Isn't that where the Labor Party started? In Barcaldine, the famous knowledge tree? Now, all of a sudden, the Labor government is turning their back on those very shearers and the workers, and they always, well, when I was a kid, we were told that the Labor Party looked after the workers. But no, not anymore, not anymore. They just want to look after their votes in the cities and their little deals that they've done with their green counterparts. So the inquiry we did, let's be honest, it was quick. It was quick and dirty, to be honest. It just very 2 or 3 weeks, bang, had to go over, get the information. There was a whole lot of submissions that weren't even fully analysed. So what I'm calling for is to make sure that we have a Senate inquiry. This needs to be shelved, and a Senate inquiry where these people's livelihoods, where the live sheep trade industry can actually have their say and have their information fully analysed and treated with respect and treated with dignity, so we can keep that vital industry going. And for heaven's sakes, let's make sure that we keep the live cattle trade open and thriving as well, and not listen to some of our members from the crossbench.
Authorised by Andrew Wilcox, LNP Mackay.